Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lives podcast. This is Brian, joined by my co-host, Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share their thoughts and perspectives on marriage. We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. This week on the pod, we want to talk to you about what does sacrifice look like?
Yep, and before we get all the way into the episode, we just would like to thank you for stopping by. If this is your first time, welcome. And if you've been rocking with us for a while, welcome back. If you get any value out of this episode, please just share it. And if you like and subscribe, that'd be great so you can get our content as quick as possible. Also, if you'd like to reach out to us, you can hit us up on our DM searching Marriage is Tougher on any social media platform, or go to marriagestougher.com and click the contact form, fill that out, and we will answer your question as soon as we can. If you'd like to be a guest, you can also hit that contact form and we'll reach back out to get you on the pod. We really appreciate your support and you taking the time to listen. All right, let's get into the show.
So my concern with this topic is someone on the other end being like, you think that's sacrifice? That ain't sacrifice.
That makes sense.
Right?
That makes sense.
So how do we start this conversation? What does sacrifice look like to you? I feel like there have been some things that I have sacrificed. I feel in this very moment that a lot of them have been smaller.
Mm-hmm.
In the grand scheme of things is what I say, or is what I will say. In the grand scheme of things, I've learned that they are smaller while I was less educated, they felt bigger.
Yeah. Well, and as you grow things, it's like the more
Right.
you sacrifice, the more you realize some of the things that you've given up weren't that big of a deal, right? The first thing is, let's talk about, so sacrifice in the sense of the word, if we talk first definition or old times before now, is like literally killing an animal, right? Or a person, depending on what your thing is,
Right.
to offer to a deity, right?
Right.
So to either gain their good graces or reclaim something, whatever. But we also use it as giving something up that's valued for the sake of something else, right? That's regarded as important or worthy. So I think if we sit at that definition, right, the act of giving something up valued for the sake of something else regarded as more important or worthy, that is where it's subjective, right? So I hear what the voice in your mind that you said that, that's not a sacrifice. But because it's subjective, you can't call someone else's sacrifice worthy or not, right? Because if I like, right? So if someone likes cheesecake, right? And they're like, oh, I'm giving this last piece of cheesecake to my wife, right? That could be a sacrifice for them. But for me, it's an offering because I don't like cheesecake. So if I have a piece of cheesecake, I'm giving it to anyone, right?
Gotcha.
So that is not a sacrifice. So I would look at that, man, that's not a sacrifice. Cheesecake is terrible. But if I know, right, that person, that's their favorite dessert, and they've been waiting to get to this restaurant to eat this specific cheesecake, and then they give it away, that would be, I could understand that being a sacrifice. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, other than you don't like cheesecake, I don't know who you are. So there's that.
Cream cheese.
Oh man. Yeah, man. So I'm trying to reflect on some of the things that have been sacrificed, right? And mostly it's been personal time, but I've also made the decision to be a husband and a father to a few kids.
Yeah, you have.
And what comes with that is they all need their own individual time with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're trying to do it right,
Yeah, that part.
you know. Um, and that's I'm not only talking about the kids, right? We're talking about our wife as well, and I willingly give them that, but it does come at a cost, and some of that cost for me because I know what it is to focus on yourself for so long, especially when you're trying to be in a space of growth. Um, so I think for me, that has been one of the biggest sacrifices is having that time for growth. That is the type of growth I was trying to experience or am trying to experience happens a lot slower when your priorities are your family.
Absolutely. And that's a good thing to point out, right? Because if we're talking about what does sacrifice look like, it's some people would think or already assume it's par for the course. Once you're married and have a family, like you're gonna have to give up your time. But
Mhm.
some people don't believe that that's a thing. So it can be a space that maybe people wouldn't understand or see if they didn't see it that way. Right? Like if I'm trying to grow and I'm trying to do this and I got to do this, or I'm doing this because of my family and all that.
Mhm.
So it's maybe time is not a thing that they would see as a sacrifice.
Maybe, or they would be unwilling to sacrifice the time, right?
True.
Like you see it a lot in movies and TV shows. The old you're holding me back. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this
Mm-hmm.
sort of conversation,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the other perspective is all of this is more important, and I shouldn't let anything else hold me back from giving my family what they deserve. Is how I look at it anyway. I haven't always, because I think going in, my thought was we could do it all of it. It's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely not a problem until it's a problem.
Right. Agreed. And you know, that's the quintessential definition that we're using. It's like giving something up that's valued, right? Our time is
Mhm.
valued because our time is where we can grow, but you're giving that up for something else that is of greater value
Yeah,
or of more importance.
right.
So I think it's a mindset really. And I think for us, what I'm hearing is sacrifice looks like the main thing is time.
For sure.
Um, and I would have to agree because there's only so many hours in the day. I mean, for me, the biggest thing is sleep
Mm,
because the balance of still having time to grow and taking time to grow only happens before everyone else gets up. So even if I go to bed at the same time, which is late, I still have to get up if I'm trying to grow in certain areas.
right.
So I don't know if you have how your time plays out. Like, how does that play out for you? Like, you're sacrificing time, but what are you doing with that time?
So most recently, I've decided, like I have stated earlier, is to engage the kids more, engage my wife more. Um, so while I'm thinking about going back to the days where editing the podcast was taking me hours just because of the equipment that I had to use. Right. Um, the cost to me to get some of that time back, which is how I choose to perceive it. Right. I buy my time back. So
Mm-hmm.
I bought new tools that could make editing faster. invested some time to learn to be better at it. And so that sacrifice goes both ways, right? Like it's not just me sacrificing that time to be able to spend more time with my wife. It's the cost to my family of me going through those growing pains in order to get to the spot I am now, where,
Mm.
Maybe it takes me a half hour to edit, but that's rare that it takes me that long. Right. So you buy back 3.5 hours every week of editing time.
Right.
And, I mean, and really just that point is made to show that it does go both ways. So, having those conversations with your family in the times where, you may need to take time away from them. But like we said before, setting smart goals. So your goals are time bound.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make sure that, you are checking in, being held accountable, staying on track. So it's not just this open ended or, blank check that you've written to be
Right.
loose with the time that you should be spending at home, but have as a family decided that this will be beneficial for our family and, makes sense for me to spend the next 8 months on, whatever the case may be. But making sure you're checking in. So if something's not working, we can, redo the plan or extend it or even cut that if we find that it's not working, right? Hate to get halfway
Mm-hmm.
or 3/4 through something and realize that you're not going to get done on time or it's not going to serve the purpose that you thought it would, and waste that other quarter of time, I guess.
Yeah. That's such an interesting uh, example for me. As you were talking, I was thinking about even that is a sacrifice, like talking with your wife and family instead of just making the decision on your own.
Yeah.
Um, it's giving up, because ultimately we could be as selfish as we want to be because we don't have to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we just choose. When you choose to include people, that is a sacrifice of your autonomy. And if we think about that, if you have a hard time thinking about sacrificing, if you think about it in that way, you've been doing that for a long time, right? Anytime you have to share something, anytime you're on a project with a group, anytime you're making a decision on what to eat and it's not just you, um, you have the muscle to sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
I think where we think of it as sacrifice is when it's a quote unquote big deal, right? Um, and some of us, it's just easier in nature to compromise.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't feel like as big of a deal because it's just, oh, I've already learned how to compromise. I already, I think more selflessly as well. So I think it can be a hard time to be like, okay, what am I sacrificing? What am I doing? Like, oh, I don't feel like I can sacrifice, or I don't want to get in a relationship because I don't want to sacrifice anything. So it's like there's varying degrees of where you are. Um, or you're already like, well, I know I'm not giving up this thing. You
Yeah.
already have your thing. But you can get to any place that you want as long as you realize you've practiced for a while.
Yeah. That self-awareness is real, man. And we've previously called them non-negotiables, right? Um, but marriage is a partnership and nothing is non-negotiable.
Right.
Right? It's, I mean, all those things that I thought that now I can't give this up, I rarely even think about nowadays. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really funny. I and it's not to say I don't think about them from time to time, but I just don't care. I don't know if it's as much as I used to or care like I thought I would at this point in my life.
Oh, that's an interesting perspective. Yeah,
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, because what I'm thinking is like you can't know the future you, right? And you can't know what changes are going to occur. You
Hmm.
can't, you know, like for me having a health scare, that changes the perspective on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you can't know the future you. And so while you might think you can project to the future, like, yes, this is always going to be the thing that I need for me to be happy in my life. Next thing you know, July 13th happens and none of that's real anymore,
Right.
you know? So I don't know. I think I have a evolving outlook on life. Um, some things remain, some things have changed.
Hmm.
Um, some things are more important now, some things are less. And I think that's just uh, a fluid state, right? Like day to day,
Yeah.
things can become either less or more important. But again, going back to the self awareness of what you believe your non negotiables are and checking in on those, right? Being open minded enough to know that those things are going to change
Hmm.
and being willing to allow those things to change, I think is very important, right? Because I think what you'll learn as you get older is you can't always dictate what life's going to bring.
Right. That's good. I appreciate you going a little more into that because it's we can hold ourselves hostage to who we thought we were going to be.
Or what others think we should be.
Yeah. And how those things can affect what we have to sacrifice,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because of everything that you just laid out. So it's okay to not be where or who you thought or how you thought you would be, 5 years from now, because life circumstance dictates a lot on who you will be. Granted, we have that perfect uh, person that we want to be,
Mm-hmm.
um, but then life will come at us, and are we still on track to be that good person? Or does something happen? And if you're open to learning new things, you have to realize you're not going to be the same person 5 years from now anyway, because you're going to
Yeah.
have a new perspective based on what you've experienced and what you've learned.
Yeah.
So that can make sacrifice look differently, just like you said. Have kind of a a reevaluation of what is important. And the older you get, the more that you see, um, or more that you can see loss as well,
Mm-hmm.
and having to really digest what that looks like. And that shifts your perspective as well.
Yeah. There's one last point I want to bring up, and it feels important to me, so I'm going to say it. The It's the discipline and courage to keep things sacrificed. Right?
That's good.
We talk a lot about money habits on the show. Um, we talk a lot about changes that we need to make, and I find it sometimes very easy to fall back to old habits. Right? Um, I find it easy when you're in let's say an argument or whatever to make the decision that what it was easier before to, that
Hmm.
I that I made all these you know, declarations that I would be this person or that. Um, so the discipline piece is real, and the courage to make that type of statement and then stand ground when you have friends say like, well, look, it's only one night, let's like just
Mm-hmm.
go do this. Like, no, I made the choice to not be that person anymore. Right, when whatever that looks like, whether it's, you chose to stop drinking, chose to do one thing or another, chose to close a business, chose to open one, chose to surround yourself with more people who you want to be like, or
Mm-hmm.
people that you admire. Obviously that comes at a cost of spending less time with people that you don't admire. Right, so you got to be
Yeah,
aware of that and have that discipline to keep on the track that you said you want to be on.
yeah, that's a great point of setting goals and declaring things out loud. Because once you make a decision, it feels like there's always a test to be like, are you really about that decision?
Isn't there though?
So just
It's all
knowing that once you declare it, once you write it down, once you get your mind, I'm going to do this thing, shortly after, there's going to be a challenge to be like, are you really about that life?
yeah. Yeah, all those opportunities, they're always out there, but it's always about making the choice.
Yeah. Do you think I just want to end on this. Do you think we use the word sacrifice flippantly?
That's how I felt at the beginning of the recording, um, and I think that we can. I want to say for folks like us who are consistently working on themselves and who are very aware of the things that we've given up over time, probably don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think in our younger age, we for sure use that word flippantly. It's, but I also think that it has some merit, right? Like you said, it's mostly unfair for us to say to someone that their version of sacrifice is either less important
Mm-hmm.
or less grand, um, than something we've had to sacrifice, right? Like I can imagine myself saying to my kid, like, you don't know sacrifice until you've had children,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, that's wrong. It's just what is important to them at the time.
Right.
So
Such a good point.
it may not be as big as a sacrifice I've had, or may not feel that way, but it feels that way to them because it's what they know so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Don't judge someone else's sacrifice.
Right.
So, yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. If you don't have anything else, we can wrap that on up. I think that was
Yeah,
good.
I'm good, man.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys checking us out, staying with us through the episode. If you got any insight on sacrifice and what that means to you, please let us know. Reach out to any social media space searching Marriage is Tougher. Let us know what you thought, or slide on over to marriagestougher.com, hit the contact form. Let us know what you thought, how we did, or any other um, information you have for us, or any insight you want to give us. And if you'd like to be a guest, do the same. Let us know that that's what you'd like. We appreciate it. And until next time, we'll chat later.
Peace.